All right, today's store training topic is going to be on intro to Pricebook, and it's going to include, some of the simple methods for setting up, adding items to the Pricebook, uh, and how that all relates into inventory, where all of the data ends up being set up at the base level. So as we go into this, there's a couple of different types of items that can be tracked and sold in convenience stores. The most common is items for sale. Obviously, that's what people are going in and buying off the shelves. Um, there is also the ability to track ingredients for food service. So a lot of times they'll buy the raw ingredients and make it into a burger or pizza. Um, and we have started tracking that with the ability to set up recipes so that you can actually uh, relieve the ingredients from inventory when you're selling the food service items. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then expense items, that is when you buy certain things that may not have any correlation. So like plastic bags, napkins, stirring sticks for coffee. You can't guarantee that those are 1-to-1 ratio to actual products. Cleaning products that they might use for cleaning the store. So those, and because they come on inventory receipts, like we've talked about before, uh, those are items that they still have to be set up so they can be received into the system. And then UPCs and PLUs. So let's talk a little bit about this for a quick second. So if we go price lookup. All right. So PLU is the price lookup code. Basically, it's you see it on items that are not manufactured. So items that don't have boxes. It's very common if you go to a grocery store, all the produce will have PLUs on it if it doesn't have a bag or something that has a barcode. So this price lookup code was a way for to quickly identify and ring up different products. So you can see here on this, it's pretty common to see examples of items with codes, stickers built right onto them so the cashiers can ring it up quicker. So those same things happen in convenience stores where they have different products without barcodes, without any kind of unique barcoding. So that is what a PLU is. It's it's very common for C stores to put PLUs. Yeah, that's not what I wanted. Convenience store. Maybe not, but we'll go with this one, right? So these fountain cups, coffee cups, those things that really they don't have barcodes on them, they're very likely to have PLUs in them, like the little breakfast sandwiches you might get. Um, those types of all the perishable foods that isn't in prepaid packages. Those are very likely to be what you'll see PLUs on in a convenience store. And then in addition to that, there's a couple of good UPC websites. This UPC database is one that I use most often. And just to, you can look up items. And the nice thing about looking up items here, you can verify, it doesn't have everything, but it has a vast majority of those items. So this is good to know whether or not somebody gave you a good file or not if you're converting in data. Very common to convert in Pricebook data because it's so extensive. For Lassus, we had 11,000 plus items in their files already. So, but one of the things as you're looking at UPCs, depending on the different labeling, you're going to see the UPCE is also called a short UPC. It's only 6 digits in the middle that are matter. The first digit's a country code, and it's always 0 for the US. Last digit's the check digit on a barcode. And you can see that UPC, short UPC, extends into UPC I've been using for many, many years, Pepsi 20 ounce. It's always good to memorize a couple of UPCs. That helps, when you're doing examples or looking up data to confirm how accurate it is. So the one thing that I've found over the years, our software requires no check digit. So as we're putting things into our system, we're going to want this 12,000 prefix here and the 00129. We do not want this 1 on the end for a check digit. So, but this is giving you barcode format examples. And then there is a new type of barcode, and it's basically, so these are the most prevalent ones that you'll see in the US for packaging, but then they expanded it. The EAN was European article number, which is basically Europe and all of their countries, because this first digit was a country code. Obviously there's more than 9 countries. So this actually expands to a 13 digit. So the first 2 are country codes now. And they've actually expanded all the way up to 14 now. There's a new one as well, and it's pretty rare. But in this case, even on this different format, the 1 at the end is still the check digit. Another source here is the check digit calculator. So in our software, see if this works. Nope, doesn't like the short UPCs. All right. So in this UPC, this is actually the GS1. This is actually the company that issues barcodes worldwide. So if you wanted to produce your own product and manufacture it and sell it globally or even locally in the US, you would need to register here and pay a fee to get a barcode range allocated for your country to your specifics. So they also provide a check digit calculator that's handy. And this is important because since our software does not store the check digit, there's actually a couple of places where we have to calculate the check digit. And hopefully from a implementation standpoint, you don't need to know how to calculate the check digit or anything like that. You just need to be able to know how to identify when a UPC includes a check digit or doesn't. Because I've had examples where somebody wasn't familiar, converted all the data in with check digits, and then we had to do a lot of extra work to get that data out. So you always want to be checking for check digits on those products. So as we go through, there's a couple of ways to enter items in i21. So we're going to focus on these couple of items here for simplicity purposes. And as we go through, so let's go with the inventory module itself. So in the inventory items, So this particular screen, I'm going to show you the hard way first, and then I'm going to show you the easy way. The easy way's got limited on what fields are available there. But this is going to be the important part as we're running through the system. Want to be able to discuss about all the pertinent fields because there is hundreds of fields in the inventory screens, and very few of them are critical. So want to be able to talk about the different items, how they work and why they're critical, which ones are most important. So the item number itself is required. Uh, I recommend this be the UPC number without a check digit from any item that has a UPC number. And it's just for simplicity purposes. So after that, then we have the ability to do the item type for inventory. That's going to be pretty common. You might have a non-inventory item as well. Short name, it's not required. Description is required, so you're going to use that one. Active, this is going to come into play later on, but active is going to be required to send things to the register. And the category is going to be very critical. That is what department the sales are running up under. So beyond that, many of these other fields are optional, not needed. Lot tracking we would never do in store, and I don't really want to talk about all of the fields because I don't think they're going to be that pertinent. So from here, going down to the unit of measure, we absolutely need at least one unit of measure. Typically, this is going to be in each for most things, but you can also have case UPCs and case sizes here too in the system. So as you receive product in, being able to receive it in by a case instead of an each, that'll help make the inventory receipt screen easier to utilize. So on the each unit quantity, obviously one, the UPC code here, again, without check digit, and then that, the stock, allow purchase, allow sale, those are the common indicators. So we always recommend tracking inventory in the base unit of the product for C-store because it's very common for somebody to have partial cases. If you've seen the convenience stores, they'll open up a case of candy bars and just have it open on the shelves so the people are taking things out of the display case uh, for that sale purpose. And then, in this case, Pepsi 20 ounce, 24 bottles comes in a case, but there is no UPC code for the case. Some products will have a different UPC code for a case. For example, cigarettes will have a carton UPC that can be the same as a case. This is going to be different from each's UPC. So the GL accounts do not need to be set up at the items. They can be inherited from the category. That is very common in C-store. There's thousands upon thousands of items. You don't want to maintain the GL accounts for every item, and it's rare for those items that need, maybe some miscellaneous expense, miscellaneous fee items you would set up to be unique and override a category. But the items that are for sale, typically you're not going to put in anything here. As far as location, there's actually a lot of fields here that are going to be important for us. And by the way, that short UPC must be unique error. That is coming from, there must be another item with a short UPC that has the same barcode. We require the short UPC and the UPC code be unique. So, all right. So costing method is obviously going to be important, but that's inventory costing method is probably a little bit beyond this. Sale unit of measure, you're going to want to default that to the sales. And purchase could be whether or not you want to default to case or each, depending on if the item has it. But all of these fields here in point of sale, or I will say majority of these items in point of sale, are going to be pretty critical for us. But at the same time, they can be defaulted. So this point of sale description is obsoleted, but families and classes. So this is going to be a very important part for anybody setting up a price book. You want the system to be able to use families and classes to make maintenance in the future much easier. They're often used for reporting purposes as well as for price changes or other mass changes. So family and class we'll see in these price book training sessions much more detail related to it. But from there, we've got, it's very common to see family is Pepsi, Coke. It's the different brand or flavors that might be priced together. And then class is going to be the size, because a 20-ounce bottle, usually all the Pepsi 20-ounce flavors are going to be priced together. So when one flavor goes up, they all go up. And then you're going to have things like 1 liters, 2 liters, 20 ounce, etc. And then you may also have different brands of cigarettes. Your Camel packs versus your Camel cartons. They may have different pricing methods too. So those are going to be important fields for maintaining a price book and making it simple. So product code, this is 100% mandatory if they want to send this to the register. So product code, let me see if I can pull up a. So NACS product codes, there is NACS is a National Association of Convenience Stores, and they have a set of standards, and that's their categories, not their product codes. I just saw it. All right. All right, so here we've got, it's not going to tell me without signing my life away. It's too bad. This is actually a register manual that may not have what we want in it. I may just have to include a link to this. Okay, yeah, here's a general. All right, so this Appendix A does have. So there's a product reference, and this product code reference is meant to be nationally accepted. All the registers should be using the same product codes. And you'll notice different sets of products. There's groups for a range. So all fuels are 1 through 99. And then you're going to have, any automotive products are going to be the 100 to 149. So if somebody has a car wash button on their register, they might have a PLU for car washes, and then that's going to be linked to this product code 102. So the important point for these product codes is they get used to validate credit cards. So when you have fleet cards and you're a trucking company, you want your truckers to be on the road and you want them to be able to buy fuel. But maybe it's a diesel truck, so maybe you only want them to be able to buy these diesel products and not be able to buy gasoline because you can't put gas in that product. in that vehicle. Same thing with automotive. Might want them to be able to get motor oil, some other basic road service codes. Aviation, not going to want them to do anything like that, right? But the goal is to prevent unauthorized usage of company cards, so somebody isn't buying actual merchandise with that product. So you don't want them buying their lunch on the company card. It's only supposed to be used for buying fuel. So here, the 400 range, this is most commonly going to be used and set up. So you can see we had a 400 in ours. That just means general merchandise. So it's not required to go in this level of detail, but I find many people are reporting or putting at this level of detail anyways. Like Lassus is tracking all of their product codes at this level of detail. So that, cigarettes are going to be 411. Miscellaneous tobacco is going to be 412. All their beverages are going to be 420 or 421 for pop. And their snacks, right? So going down through this list of these codes gives you an idea of what some of those types are. There's not a problem if somebody puts everything to just 400 for merchandise. But what can happen, and just like I talked about for truckers not wanting to buy certain products on their company cards, or the company's not wanting the truckers to buy non-fuel products. You also have other payment tenders, such as lottery and tobacco and alcohol. Those things can't be bought with food stamp cards. So that's important when you look at this for the alcohol, right? If you want to make sure that those things ring up properly and they don't get set that way, then you're going to want to set all the alcohol department up to 480. So that's why it's important, because it can impact what products individuals can purchase at the pumps or at the inside. So if you want to have those levels of controls, that will be important for the product code. The field's also required. If you don't have a product code, it will not be sent to the register. So if that's one quick diagnostic, if you're trying to figure out, well, I'm trying to send our first file to the register and nothing is going to the register. Why is nothing going to the register? It's likely because the product code is blank. That's one of the key attributes that is required. From here, passport fuels, that's not, that's actually for importing in fuel data. That's not still related to C-Store, but it's related to setting up fuel items, which we'll talk about more later. Not necessarily related to Pricebook scanning items. The tax flags 1 through 4, this is going to pertain to which taxes are eligible. In Indiana, we've got a base sales tax, and then there's also a food and beverage tax. So sometimes you'll see tax flag 1 is what they would be set up for the base tax. And then you'd put a yes if they also got tax flag 2, or sometimes they'll set up, tax flag 1 will be the 7%, tax flag 2 will be the 8%, and it should be an either or instead of a cumulative. Just depends on how they set up the register. So if they set up the register as 7% and then 1% for the additional, and there's some places that go for like a third sales tax, like City of Chicago has an extra sales tax on carbonated beverages that's separate from grocery tax. So these tax flags become very critical to ensuring that you charge the right amount of sales tax on the point of sale. So these flags get passed down to it. Promotional is less critical of an item. In the past, for Verifone Commander registers, we used to have to send this enabled for an item to be eligible for promotions. And anytime somebody tried to use mix and matches, if this wasn't set to yes, that was usually why they didn't work. That's been adjusted. Deposit required, this is for states like Michigan, California, and Oregon, where all the products you purchase from them they've got a bottle deposit amount on it. And typically that is an extra charge. So when you check the box for bottle deposit, you would then link it to another item or another PLU to be able to turn around and charge that extra fee for the bottle deposit. So usually it's like 10 cents for an individual bottle. And then this bottle deposit number is an older format for the Verifone Commander, whereas this deposit PLU is used for Passport. As far as the rest of the items, basically all these checkboxes do go out to the register. They have their own little unique usage. Some of them rarely get done. Saleable is one of those key ones that, if the item's not saleable, then we don't send it to the register. So that becomes an important one. Quantity required and scale item, while the fields do get sent out to the Verifone Commander, I've not seen them be used. Whether or not an item's eligible for food stamps, that could be done. If an item can be returned, this will actually prevent them from doing returns on products. If they misring something on the register, they say, no, you can't return certain products. Sales are final. You could control that. Pre-priced is an indicator that they don't, it's like a bag of chips that says $1.99 printed on the bag. You would check the box for pre-price so that a cashier can't override that price. Open price PLU, what this means is think about like a gift card. You might scan the gift card and it recognizes that barcode UPC, and then it's saying, normally it'd say, oh, well, this is $5. Well, in this case, maybe it's a set your own amount gift card. So it's, they're going to leave the price open, and that'll actually prompt the cashier to enter the amount of the gift card. So there's a couple of other scenarios where you might do that for like lottery sales. They get rang up in the other machine. The linked item really isn't needed anymore. Vendor category, this was more of a reference. So we're going to bypass that one, but that has to do with vendor imports. ID required for liquor and cigarettes. This will control age verification prompts on the cash register. So these three fields together, if for liquor, if they're under 21, they would put 21 for the minimum age and 18 for cigarettes. Blue laws are specific laws that prevent items from being sold on certain days of the week. So it's very common to have an alcohol rule that you can't sell alcohol on Sundays. That's one of the things that's actually been changed, but that used to be the most common one in Indiana. So you can set up blue laws separately on the register and choose whether or not this item belongs to that blue law or not. And then special code for car wash. So I know that's a mouthful of items or a mouthful of fields here. They do all matter in certain scenarios. Traditionally, all of your taxed items, the absolute minimum that's needed here is you're going to put in a product code. You're going to mark a tax flag 1 for sales tax. You're going to mark a saleable, probably going to mark a returnable. Those, I would say, are the four most critical fields that have to be filled in. Everything else is more situational that, even if it's tobacco products, if you don't mark this indicator, that doesn't mean they won't ring up on the register. It just means they won't be prompted. So I would say for tobacco, alcohol departments, these would be done. For non-tax items, you'd obviously have none of these checked if there's no sales tax eligible. So basically, the customers will let you know if things don't ring up properly on the register after they've been sent. And depending on the type of the issue, it may require toggling these fields. So all of these fields are kept per location. So that means per store. And the benefit of that is you might have different product codes for different registers. You might have different tax situations if you've got products in different states. Like Glasses has stores in Indiana and Ohio, so the Ohio stores may have different tax flags needed on a certain department than they do in Indiana. So there's definitely, like, the blue laws can be situational. Or just like, the bottle deposits only required in Michigan, it's not required in Indiana. So definitely a lot of situational things of why these fields vary by location. There's two other things that go with this. All of these fields can be defaulted by the category defaults. So if you get it set up once in the beginning, then every time you add a new product, these should all default to the standard that you want the items to be for that category. Typically, the only fields that won't match the standard, you wouldn't put in a Pepsi, or you wouldn't put in family and class, because that's a much smaller subset within that department. So I'll show those related fields. Other couple of quick other fields here that do matter. The negative inventory, if you're doing item level inventory, is going to be important. And then the inventory count group is some of the setup related to the daily counts that we were doing the other day on the count groups. So from here, the other tabs that are required here, there's nothing on this set of fields that will apply to C-stores. There's nothing on the manufacturing that applies to C-stores. I do take it back. There is one for fuel products. There's a fuel item checkbox. That's a special circumstance. But nothing for manufacturing, nothing for contracts. Cross-reference. Customers may want to utilize the cross-reference. It's very common for a vendor to have a vendor item number that's different from the UPC. So some customers are wanting to be able to see that information set up in the system as vendor item and products. So as they're using the system, they can either search for an item based on the UPC code, or they can search for an item based on a vendor product code. Motor fuel tax wouldn't apply, and other nothing else here applies. So on pricing, there is a couple things that apply here for pricing. The standard pricing at the top is going to be used on the system. So this retail price, this is what's going to go out to the register. So this is the most important price in the system, and it can also vary by location. In addition to the standard pricing, there's also the ability to do promotional pricing, and these are sales prices, so you can actually set up promotions for a specific time frame. So we'll say this is going to be a discounted price. And from here, we're just going to discount by an amount. All right, so from here, if we want this to be minus $1, about $1 discount apparently needs to be positive to be reduced. We can plug in date ranges here. All right, so while this record is eligible through the end of August, anytime we send a price to the register, it's going to be sending this discounted price of $1.69 instead of the $2.19. So if we remember tying this into past trainings, we talked about the automatic markup markdowns. I didn't have a good example for you on. From here, you'll see Every time we always bring inventory in for retail inventory at the retail price of $2.19. So every time we sell it while it's on sale at this $1.69, we need to reduce, purchases increased inventory by $2.19 per item. Now sales is reducing them by $1.69, so we need to be reducing it by the $2.19. So the system will be able to identify the difference between the price ring up on the register, which will be this discounted price, and the actual retail price to determine that automatic markup markdown. So with all of that said, that's a lot of fields and a lot of tabs on the inventory items itself. And the trick that I've been using for Macintosh is find a similar item in the same category and just hit duplicate and then change the price, because you probably don't have to change much else. And the intent there was to make it as easy as possible for them, because there's a lot of fields, a lot of tabs, and it's easy to miss some of that information. So one thing to counter that is in the category, the inventory category, there is a point of sale. And in this point of sale, you're going to see the exact same fields and a handful more, right? But there's all of these defaults for use, default on the tax flags we talked about, the blue laws, whether or not we want to default a product code, food stamp, saleable, returnable, the tax IDs. So all those checkboxes that we talked about can pretty much all be defaulted for a department or an inventory category, which is the store department. So it's going to be important here on this price book to make sure that when you're setting up categories, these fields get set appropriately, because that'll save a lot of extra work and hassle and prevent bad data from going to the register in the future. So that's one method of speeding that up. And then the other method is an alternative place. We actually have the inventory module is trying to serve the needs of many different industries and lines of business. So in the store module, we actually created our own set of Pricebook utilities. And these Pricebook utilities are meant to streamline the efficiencies of the users. So the next one I want to go into is item quick entry. So if we go for that same Pepsi item here on the Stillhart Road, so you notice we've got an item quick entry screen. And so what we've done here is we can duplicate to create new items. We can create brand new items. We can actually drill back into the inventory item screen if there's a one-off change we need to make that is not part of this. So on this screen, the sole intent here is to give the user a much easier experience than the inventory maintenance screen. When you make any changes here and you save those changes, all of these changes are being replicated back to the inventory item screen, because that is the inventory item is the one version of truth for the entire database. So I just added those Z's, I just drilled back to the item. So there's those same Z's we talked about. So we can take them back off, take it all back off, make it look clean. Description. And if I go back to that item, refresh here. So that's cleaning that up too. So on this quick entry screen, the intent is very quick and easy ways to check or change prices or change the key fields that are likely going to be different per item. So I mentioned all of those fields can default from the category. It would be beneficial except for family and class. So we will let you change family and class on this product. And then you can determine if there's price changes down here you want to replicate. You can actually copy whatever price there was. So in the case of Lassus, they'll have 36 stores in this grid. You may want to make this price change available to all of them. You don't want to go through down 36 times in the row. So you'd make the change to one row and choose which store to copy that pricing to. Since I don't have a lot of stores set up here, this isn't making nearly as much sense. And then we can also set a default vendor, which can be good for reporting purposes, and a vendor product for that cross-reference. So obviously this is a much, much simpler screen. It doesn't have every field on it because most of those fields are not going to be different. So if we wanted to create a brand new item here, we can put this to an each. This to our 7 pop-in energy. Sure, why not? I'll make it a Pepsi 20 ounce. And then we need to pick which items which locations this should be added to. We can default in standard and last cost, or let it be added in the future. And then we can add this to multiple locations here. So let's go ahead and save this. And this is the only nullable object I see here. This drop down for Pepsi. See if that takes it. Guess what, Nelson? It's got another task to research. That's why it's good to have him on this training. So I don't see any other drop downs here. Fill it all in. Yeah, and I believe Nelson's already got something worked on for the short UPC. I remember that one. And we're just on an old version. Once the first maintenance release comes out here, hopefully next week or sooner, we'll update this demo environment so that we've got more up-to-date fixes. It's kind of crazy that we're still running on a 4-month-old version in our source environment. So when that item is added, I'm just curious. Looks like it was trying to add something there. So the item quick entry lets us change existing records, but not currently letting us add, and it should allow us to add as well. All right, the last piece of today's training I want to go through to is the update register process. So in the update register, it's a store activity. This is typically something that's going to be done roughly once a day by the store managers. There's interest in the future of automating this to auto send at like 1 a.m. So if there's any new price changes for the day, those would be eligible and sent. So store manager is typically the one who's going to be doing this. It can be done from the main office, and the main office is going to have the ability to track, uh, what was sent versus what didn't get sent successfully. So the nice thing about the office sending it is if there is a price change in the late afternoon, a lot of times store managers come in, they work a very early shift to midday. So they might work like at 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. and be done for the day. This allows somebody to not have to wait for the next day to send the register updates. In i21, they can do it. This is a brand new feature compared to what was available in Origin. So in store, so they would normally select a store and choose that they want to send a Pricebook file. They can also send promotions. We'll be talking about those in a follow-up training session. And then the beginning change date is automatically going to default to the last time somebody sent prices to the register. So that way it sends smaller files. This is 5 to 10,000 UPCs. Record might be a lot of data. We don't want to bog down the register by always sending all the data. So the system's keeping track. When did the last time the register get sent for this store? And send all changes through the specific date. There's a couple of other options here. We can force it to send the entire Pricebook file for a location, or we can filter it down to only send a specific category. So let's say we want to send all the cigarettes, we could do that as well. So on this screen, it pretty much defaults to the way it's going to be done most often. It's just in rare cases where you might want to send other. So when you go to update the data, if there is anything to send, it'll show up in this update preview of all the UPCs. And even though this preview isn't showing any records, it's interesting that the store app must have been connected and downloaded it successfully. So this would be if I'm the store manager or if I'm the office sending it, I want to know that the store manager actually received it and the store app received it and sent it down to the register. So something we'll talk about more in depth later on. But there is a remote application installed on the store computer, and that does the handshakes between i21 to get files from i21 for Pricebook and to send it down to the register. Or the flip side of it, it communicates from the register to get the register files and send it back up. So this is just saying it was successfully connected and sent. And this will give any errors. So in this case, there is no promotional data to send. So that's just us not doing much in our database, in our test database. But I would have expected this to show a record count of the number of records actually sent to the register. So I'm going to try and change this again to everything and see if we actually see if it'll actually send any data for me. Yeah. Again, it says it's doing it, but there's nothing shown in the grid. Out of curiosity, if I try and send it to store 101, so it looks like store 101 is not going to work either. Okay. And I do recall Nelson did some research on this one way back in the past. I think this is that blank grid is also a symptom of being too old of a version here. Now, this one actually didn't get the message that it had been sent to the store app, because this one time actually was no records, because if you notice here, it changed the beginning change date. The next time I tried to send for that store, it says, well, you've already sent through the 10th, so I'm going to default you to the 11th. Going to add one to that. All right. So update register is a task that they would be doing on a daily basis, sometimes midday, whenever there's price changes or new items added to the stores. It's very common for people to be doing that every single day.